January 4th, 46 BC. You're Julius Caesar and you're about to make the worst tactical mistake of your career. You landed in Africa a week ago with barely 3,000 men. Your supply ships scattered in a storm. Your enemies control the entire province. You need food, so you march out with 30 cohorts to forage grain 3 miles from your base at Raspina. Your scouts report enemy movement. You send for your 400 cavalry and 150 archers. You ride forward to investigate. What you see stops you cold. The enemy deploys in tight formations that look like infantry. Dense blocks, close order. You think you're facing foot soldiers? You're wrong. Titus Labienus, your former right hand from 8 years of war in Gaul, commands 8,000 Numidian cavalry and 1,600 Gallic and Germanic horsemen. He's tricked you. Those aren't legions. Those are mounted warriors mixed with light infantry, packed shoulder to shoulder to fool your reconnaissance, and they're about to surround you. Where Caesar's genius barely saved him from annihilation. Of a Colossus, published by Yale University Press in 2006, which synthesizes archaeological evidence with ancient texts to reconstruct late Republican warfare. Now, back to the information. Besieged in Alexandria from August 48 to January 47. Meanwhile, the Republican survivors, the Optimates, regroup in the Roman province of Africa. Modern Tunisia. They build an army, 10 legions, 4 more under King Juba of Numidia, 120 war elephants, thousands of Numidian light cavalry. Command falls to Quintus Caecilius Metellus Scipio, former consul, and Titus Labienus, Caesar's second in command for the entire Gallic Wars. Labienus, who held the winter quarters at Vesontio in 58 BC. Labienus, who commanded all legions in Gaul during Caesar's absence. Labienus, who defeated the Treviri under Induciomarus, killed the chief personally with his cavalry, scattered the army. Labienus, who annihilated the Parisii at Lutetia by tricking them into thinking he'd divided his force into thirds. Labienus, who knew every tactic Caesar would use because he'd helped invent them. Draft animals stay behind. He's gambling on finding supplies in Africa. December 17th, Caesar reaches Lilybaeum. December 25th, he sets sail with whatever ships he has. Poor intelligence about landing sites. Winter storms. Mediterranean winds scatter his convoy. December 28th, Caesar lands near Hadrumetum with 3,000 legionaries and 150 cavalry. That's it. 1 legion's worth of men. The garrison at Hadrumetum refuses to surrender. Considius Longus commands the defense. 700 cavalry, 2 legions. Caesar doesn't have the strength to take the city. He marches south to Raspina, sets up camp. He leaves 6 cohorts to garrison Leptis, marches back to Raspina. His full force now, 30 understrength cohorts, maybe 9,000 men total, possibly as low as 7,000 depending on cohort strength. 400 Gallic cavalry, 150 archers. Compare that to what waits inland. Metellus Scipio commands 10 legions. Juba brings 4 more. 8,000 Numidian cavalry under direct command. Countless light infantry. Slingers, javelin throwers. The Numidians are specialists. They ride bareback, no saddles, no stirrups. They control their horses with voice and leg pressure. They carry javelins and small shields. They can wheel and turn faster than any heavy cavalry Rome has. They harass, they surround, they dart in, throw, dart out. They don't stand and fight, they don't need to. They bleed you. Caesar takes his 30 cohorts out on a foraging mission. No baggage, light and fast. He needs grain. His camp is starving. 3 miles from Raspina, his scouts spot enemy forces. Caesar sends back for his 400 cavalry and 150 archers. Moves forward to conduct reconnaissance. What he sees, tight formations advancing, dense order. He assumes infantry, heavy legions. He deploys in a single extended line to prevent flanking. Archers in front, cavalry split between both wings. Standard defensive deployment when outnumbered. Then Labienus springs the trap. Tens of thousands of light infantry. The sources say 4 times as many foot soldiers as Labienus has cavalry, which puts the total Republican force around 45 to 50,000 men. Caesar has maybe 9,000 infantry, 400 cavalry, 150 archers. He's outnumbered 5 to 1. The light infantry moves up center, starting their harassment. Javelins rain down, arrows, slingstones. Caesar's legionaries throw their pila back. Useless. The Numidians just withdraw out of range and keep firing. Caesar's cavalry tries to hold the flanks. Gets routed. 400 horsemen against 9,600. They break, flee back toward the Roman line. Now Caesar's infantry is surrounded completely. The Numidians have circled behind them. Light troops front and rear. Cavalry on every side. This is how Marcus Licinius Crassus died at Carrhae in 53 BC, surrounded by Parthian cavalry and light infantry. Missile storm. No way to close. Crassus lost 20,000 men. His head ended up in a Parthian play. This is how Curio died at the Bagradas River in 49 BC, surrounded by Numidian cavalry. Entire army destroyed. 2 legions gone, Curio's head sent to King Juba. The 10th is in disgrace. Some past failure, the sources don't specify which. The veteran steps forward, throws his pilum at Labienus' horse, hits it, wounds it badly. That'll teach you, Labienus, the veteran growls, that a soldier of the 10th is attacking you, shaming his former commander. Labienus pulls back. He needs to create a formation that faces all directions. He orders his cohorts to extend the battle line as wide as possible, stretch it thin. Then he commands every other cohort to turn around. Standards facing rear. Half the line now faces forward toward the light infantry center. Half faces backward toward the Numidian cavalry that's encircled them. It's a double-sided line. Not quite an orbis, a full hollow square, but close. Enough to present shields and spears in every direction. The legionaries charge both ways, throw their pila. The javelins scatter the Numidian infantry in front and break up cavalry formations behind. The Romans pursue for a short distance, can't go far, start marching back toward camp and formation. They attack Caesar's retreating column. Harassment intensifies. Javelins from every angle. Caesar stops the retreat, redeploys his men for combat, launches a counterattack. The charge drives the Optimates back over a hill. Petreius gets wounded. Both sides are exhausted, completely spent. They disengage. Both armies withdraw to their camps. Some claim Caesar lost 1/3 of his force. That would be 3,000 men out of 9,000, dead or wounded. The Bellum Africum says thousands died on the field. The gaming reconstruction by Mortem et Gloriam, published in November 2019, estimates similar losses. But a military history forum debate from November 2009 argues that the 1/3 figure probably includes wounded, not just killed. Context matters. Caesar's men fought surrounded for hours. Numidian javelins caused many small injuries, penetrating wounds, flesh wounds. Men who could walk but couldn't fight. The actual death toll was likely lower, maybe 600 to 1,000 killed, but combat effectiveness was shattered. Caesar's cavalry took 200 killed according to the most detailed sources. Numerous Numidian horses captured, needed for scouting and foraging. But here's the thing. Caesar held the field at the end. Both armies withdrew, but the Optimates retreated first. Technically, Caesar could claim victory, but what did he gain? Nothing. He failed his mission. No grain, no supplies. His men are starving. His cavalry is wrecked. He's trapped at Ruspina with a hostile province around him and 40,000 enemy soldiers 3 miles away. Metellus Scipio hears the news. His commanders Labienus and Petreius had Caesar surrounded with a 5-1 advantage, and they still couldn't destroy him. The myth of Caesar's invincibility grows. Enemy soldiers start deserting. They don't want to face the man who survived that. But the strategic reality? Caesar is hanging by a thread. The craftsmen in camp manufactured javelins and slingshots on a massive scale. He sends urgent messages to Sicily. Bring grain, bring reinforcements, bring anything. Days pass. Metellus Scipio arrives with the main army, joins with Labienus and Petreius. They set up camp 3 miles from Caesar's position. They probe his defenses with cavalry raids, nothing decisive. Scipio sees Caesar's fortifications, towers, artillery. He doesn't attack, waits. Late January, Caesar's reinforcements arrive from Sicily, the 13th and 14th legions, 800 Gallic cavalry, 1,000 archers and slingers, grain ships. His position stabilizes. More legions arrive in February, the 9th and 10th, veterans, experienced troops. Caesar now has 8 legions, still outnumbered, but not desperate anymore. Marches on Uzita, a major water source for the Republican forces, tries to force Scipio to battle. Scipio refuses. Even with 13 legions, King Juba's reinforcements included, he won't attack Caesar's fortified positions. Caesar builds 2 long lines of fortifications from his camp to Uzita, installs catapults and scorpions, artillery pieces, bombards Uzita. Some of Scipio's troops defect, Gaetulian auxiliaries. Legionaries from the 4th and 6th legions. Scipio still won't fight. Traps Scipio's forces. Stampede back through Scipio's own formations. Trample his light infantry. Break his left wing. Caesar's cavalry outmaneuvers the Republican horse. Overruns Scipio's fortified camp. The Republican army collapses. Legionaries furious after months of campaigning massacre prisoners. Thousands executed on the field. Scipio flees to sea, commits suicide. Cato the Younger, the moral leader of the Republican cause, kills himself at Utica rather than accept Caesar's pardon. Disembowels himself with his sword. His physician tries to push the intestines back in. Cato tears them out with his own hands. Metellus Scipio dead. Cato dead. Juba dead. Petreius dead. The Republican army in Africa destroyed. The Bellum Africum makes clear they were terrified before the battle even started. They saw themselves exposed upon a foreign coast to the mighty forces of a crafty nation, supported by an innumerable cavalry. They had no resource in their present circumstances or expectation of safety in their own conduct. That's the reality if you calculate just Caesar's cavalry and the front cohorts that were fully engaged. The encirclement was complete. If Labienus had ordered a coordinated charge from all sides, cavalry smashing into the Roman circle while light infantry kept up the javelin storm, Caesar's double line would have collapsed. The legionaries would have broken, scattered, slaughtered in the open. No fortified camp to retreat to. No ships within reach, just sand and Numidian horsemen running down fleeing Romans. Maybe Rome never becomes an empire, Antony never rises, Cleopatra never influences Roman politics. Octavian, the future Augustus, is just a teenager, Caesar's grandnephew, nobody important. The entire arc of Western history pivots on this moment. Even surrounded, Caesar's legionaries are dangerous up close. Shields locked, swords ready. Numidians without stirrups can be pulled from their horses, killed in close combat. Labienus knows this. He fought with Caesar for 8 years. He saw what Roman infantry can do when desperate. At the Sabis River in 57 BC, when the Nervi ambushed Caesar's army while they were building camp, the legions were scattered and disorganized. The 9th and 10th legions under Labienus won anyway, defeated the Atrebates, sent the 10th legion into the rear of the Nervi line and saved Caesar's entire army. Labienus was there. He remembers. His personal leadership, the gravitas, the reputation, holds the formation together just long enough to execute the double-face maneuver and fight free. Maybe failure to land when the ships first scattered. The sources don't say. But this veteran redeems the unit, publicly shames Labienus in front of both armies, reminds everyone that even Caesar's disgraced troops are more loyal and braver than Republican commanders. It's propaganda, but it works. The story spreads through both camps. The 10th's honor is restored. He can't use standard Roman formations against this type of enemy. The triplex aces, 3 lines of infantry, the usual deployment, is useless when you're surrounded. You need to present force in all directions. Some sources describe what Caesar formed as an orbis, a hollow square or circular formation. Others say it was a double-sided line, not quite a full square. The Bellum Africum describes him extending his line and ordering every other cohort to turn around. That's not a perfect circle. It's more like a very wide, thin rectangle with half the men facing forward and half facing backward. The wings can curl back to protect the sides. It's flexible, mobile enough to execute a fighting withdrawal. He has seconds to give orders that 30 cohorts must understand and execute simultaneously. Cohorts are independent units of 480 men each. They don't train to fight backward, but Caesar's men have been with him for years. The 5th and 10th legions are veterans of Gaul and Greece. They've drilled together, they trust their commander, they execute. The line extends, every other cohort turns. Standards face rear. The formation holds. They charge in both directions at once. It works. That's when Petreius and Piso arrive with their 1,600 fresh cavalry and more light infantry. The harassment intensifies. Caesar stops, turns, charges, drives them back. The Romans keep moving. Petreius gets wounded, javelin or sword, the sources don't specify. The Optimates break off. Both sides collapse from exhaustion. He stays in camp, fortifies, waits for supplies from Sicily. His men are making weapons from scratch, javelins, slings. The craftsmen work around the clock. Caesar's messages to Sicily are desperate. He needs food, needs reinforcements, needs ships. If Scipio had attacked the camp at Raspina in the days after the battle, Caesar might not have held. His men were wounded, demoralized, starving. But Scipio doesn't attack. He sets up 3 miles away and waits. Fatal mistake. Gives Caesar time to recover, time for reinforcements to arrive, time to rebuild his cavalry from captured Numidian horses. He needed to win quickly before the Republicans could concentrate their full strength. Raspina should have ended that threat. Should have been the moment where the scattered invasion force got crushed before it could consolidate. Instead, Caesar survives. His legend grows. Enemy morale cracks. Deserters come over to his side. The psychological momentum shifts. Hannibal surrounds and destroys 8 Roman legions. 50,000 dead. Rome recovers because it has the manpower and the will. Carrhae, 53 BC. Crassus loses 7 legions to Parthian cavalry and cataphracts. 20,000 killed, 4,000 captured. The defeat humiliates Rome and ends Crassus. Teutoburg Forest, 9 AD. Arminius ambushes and destroys 3 legions under Varus. 15,000 killed. Rome abandons Germania. Raspina could have been that kind of disaster. Caesar trapped, surrounded, annihilated. The civil war decisively won by the Optimates, but it doesn't happen. Caesar fights free. He's outnumbered 5-1, surrounded, under fire. His cavalry is broken. His men are panicking. He invents a formation on the spot, executes it under the worst conditions imaginable, fights his way out, keeps his army intact. That's why his soldiers followed him. That's why they ignored his orders at Thapsus and massacred prisoners. They loved him. He'd pulled off miracles for them too many times to question. The counterfactual is tantalizing. Caesar dead at age 53, 43 years, 9 months old on January 4th, 46 BC. He was born July 12th or 13th, 100 BC. His entire future erased. No dictatorship. No reform of the calendar. We'd still be using the confused lunar calendar that kept drifting out of sync with seasons. No Julian calendar, no leap years, no foundation for the Gregorian calendar we use now. No consolidation of power that leads to the Principate. No model for Augustus. No Roman Empire as we know it. The Republic might have lingered, might have reformed, might have collapsed differently. March 17th, 45 BC, Battle of Munda in Spain. Caesar's forces against the last Republican army. Labienus commands the cavalry. During the fight, King Bogud, a Caesar ally, attacks the Republican rear with his forces. Labienus sees this, takes his cavalry from the front line to meet the threat. The Republican infantry misinterprets the cavalry withdrawal as a retreat. They panic, break, rout, massive casualties. Labienus himself dies in the fighting. His body is found on the battlefield. His head is brought to Caesar. According to Appian's civil wars, Caesar sends men to find Labienus's body, buries him with full honors. One last gesture for his old lieutenant. When the civil war started in 49 BC, Caesar expected Labienus to stay loyal. Instead, Labienus crossed to Pompey, brought Gallic and Germanic cavalry with him, brought detailed intelligence on Caesar's forces and tactics, gave the Optimates everything. And at Raspina, he had Caesar, surrounded, outnumbered, exhausted. He should have won, but he hesitated, played it safe, lost the psychological war. And 4 years later, he's dead on a Spanish battlefield. His cause destroyed, his reputation as a military genius overshadowed forever by the man he couldn't kill when he had the chance. They could throw from horseback while moving, hit and run, never stay in javelin range of Roman infantry long enough to take casualties. The Gallic and Germanic cavalry that Labienus brought were heavier. They might have had mail armor, longer spears, shields. They could charge if needed, but at Raspina they followed Numidian tactics, harassment, encirclement, missile fire. Roman legionaries at this period carried the pilum, a throwing javelin with a soft iron shank designed to bend on impact so enemies couldn't throw it back. They had the gladius, a short stabbing sword optimized for close combat in formation, a large rectangular shield, the scutum. Some wore mail armor, larica hamata. Others had nothing but a helmet and maybe a leather cuirass. Caesar's men at Raspina were newly raised or incomplete legions. They probably had less armor than veterans. The 5th and 10th legions were experienced, but they'd been scattered by the storm and many hadn't landed yet. The 150 archers were probably Cretan. Crete was famous for its archers. They'd have had composite bows, accurate at 100 to 150 meters. Effective. But 150 archers can't stop thousands of light infantry and cavalry. They did what they could, covered the retreat. Just flat ground where light cavalry can maneuver freely. Caesar's nightmare. Heavy infantry needs terrain that limits cavalry movement. Woods, broken ground, fortifications. Out in the open against superior cavalry, infantry is vulnerable. Caesar knew this. That's why he formed the double line. That's why he didn't let his men chase too far. He understood the terrain was killing him. He had to neutralize it with formation and discipline. The weather on January 4th, 46 BC isn't specified in sources. Tunisia in early January is mild, average temperatures in the 50s, Fahrenheit during the day, cooler at night, possibly rain. But the sources don't mention mud or weather affecting the battle. So assume clear, dry conditions, good visibility. That helps Caesar's scouts spot the enemy, helps his men see Labienus's trap develop, helps with the retreat. The psychological state of Caesar's men is documented. The Bellum Africum explicitly states they were terrified before Ruspina. They'd been on short rations since landing. They'd seen their comrades left behind when the ship scattered. They were deep in enemy territory with no reinforcements in sight. When Caesar marched them out to forage, they didn't know they'd be fighting. When the battle started, some panicked immediately. The Aquilifer who tried to flee is proof. Caesar's personal intervention, grabbing the man, spinning him, shouting, is the only thing that held the line. Leadership at that moment wasn't about tactics. It was about raw presence, making men too afraid of disappointing Caesar to run from the enemy. But 1/3 losses in ancient battles often meant 1/3 total casualties. Killed, wounded, missing, captured. Not all dead. At Raspina, surrounded by missile fire for hours, many men would have taken javelin wounds in arms, legs, shoulders. Painful, debilitating, but not immediately fatal. They could walk back to camp, recover, fight again in weeks. The actual death toll was probably 600 to 1,000 killed outright. Another 1,500 to 2,000 wounded. That matches the mortem et gloriam estimate of thousands dead on the field, but an army still combat effective. Caesar's force was reduced, weakened, but not destroyed. Training against mounted archers and javelin throwers becomes standard. Caesar's adaptations at Raspina get studied by every Roman commander who faces Parthians, Numidians, or other cavalry-heavy armies. The battle becomes a textbook case. What to do when surrounded, how to maintain cohesion under fire, how to execute a fighting withdrawal against superior mobility. They were friends. Partners. Labienus wasn't just a subordinate. He was Caesar's military equal in Gaul. Caesar gave him independent commands, trusted him with entire campaigns. Labienus delivered. The Belgian campaign in 57 BC, the defeat of the Treveri in 54 BC, the victory at Lutetia in 52 BC, 8 years of shared victories, then the Civil War. Labienus chooses the Republic, chooses the Senate, chooses against Caesar. Why? Sources don't say definitively. Maybe principle. Maybe he genuinely believed Caesar was destroying the Republic. Maybe Pompey offered him more. Maybe he resented being second to Caesar for so long. He thinks he has this one. Then, a veteran from the 10th Legion wounds his horse, shames him publicly. The moment crystallizes everything. Labienus' defection, his betrayal, the 10th Legion's loyalty to Caesar, the personal nature of this civil war. Romans killing Romans, former comrades on opposite sides. The veteran's words, "That'll teach you, Labienus, that a soldier of the 10th is attacking you," are a declaration. We still belong to Caesar. You don't. Raspina's modern name is Monastir, Tunisia. The battlefield would be near the coast, somewhere in the plains around Monastir, but urban development, agriculture, and 2,000 years of history have obliterated most traces. Coins from the period turn up occasionally, Roman military equipment, but nothing that proves this is where Caesar fought Labienus on January 4th, 46 BC. The historical record comes entirely from texts. The Bellum Africum, Plutarch's Life of Caesar, written in the 1st century AD. Appian's Civil Wars, 2nd century AD. Cassius Dio's Roman History, 3rd century AD. These sources sometimes contradict on details, but they agree on the core facts. Caesar got surprised, surrounded, nearly destroyed, fought free through tactical genius and luck. If Petreius had arrived earlier, if Caesar's men had broken under fire, if the Aquilifer had run and others had followed, if the margins were that thin, 1,000 exhausted Romans holding off 16,000 mounted warriors in open terrain. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. Because Caesar was Caesar, because his men loved him enough to stand when every instinct screamed run. Because Labienus hesitated for just 30 seconds too long. No Octavian rising to become Augustus. No Roman Empire lasting 5 centuries in the West, 1,500 years in the East. The entire trajectory of Western civilization turns on January 4th, 46 BC, when 16,000 warriors had 1,000 Romans surrounded and Caesar refused to die. By one veteran throwing one javelin at one horse. History pivots on moments like that, moments where everything could have gone differently, where the world as we know it almost didn't happen. Raspina was that moment, Caesar's closest brush with complete disaster. The battle where his legend almost ended before history really began to write his name in permanent ink. Tourists visit Monastir for beaches and Roman ruins. Few know that somewhere nearby, Julius Caesar nearly lost everything. That Titus Labienus came within minutes of winning the Civil War for the Optimates. That 1,000 Romans held off 16,000 enemies through formation, discipline, and raw will. The receipts are in the Bellum Africum, chapter 6, the fighting withdrawal to Raspina. Every detail, every maneuver. Written by someone who was there, watching Caesar grab that fleeing standard bearer and spin him around toward the enemy. Written by someone who saw the double line form under fire, who saw the charge scatter the Numidians, who marched back to camp surrounded by corpses and wounded men, who knew even then that they'd just witnessed something impossible. So the world kept turning in the direction his genius pushed it. But for a few hours, on January 4th, 46 BC, standing in a circle with javelins raining down, Caesar's men saw their own deaths coming. They saw how close they were to becoming a footnote, another Roman army destroyed by cavalry on foreign ground. And then Caesar showed them why they followed him, why they'd marched through Gaul and Greece and Egypt and Africa. Why they'd fight other Romans in a civil war they didn't fully understand. Because when it mattered most, when death had them surrounded and outnumbered 5-1, Caesar found a way. Always. Because if you live, you get another chance. Another day. Another battle where maybe the odds are better. Caesar understood that. Labienus didn't. And that's why Caesar is remembered as one of history's greatest generals. While Labienus is a footnote, the man who had Julius Caesar surrounded and let him go. Organic material dated to approximately 50 BC, plus or minus 5 years. The layer contained microscopic fragments of wood and textile fibers, possibly from a mass cremation, possibly from something else entirely. The dating is imprecise, the location is uncertain. But somewhere under Tunisian farmland, the men who died at Raspina might still be there, Romans and Numidians and Gauls, Caesar's legionaries and Labienus's cavalry. All together in the dirt, forgotten by everyone except historians reading 2,000-year-old texts, trying to understand how 1,000 men held off 16,000, how Julius Caesar survived the day he almost lost everything.